in the book, where I'm from, growing up in hip hop, the one of the things that I thought was interesting about it and that I really appreciated is at times and multiple times throughout the book, you talk about being frustrated or borderline even jealous or seeing all these people around you being successful and it wasn't happening for you yet. And you talked about that right before you ended up going to Howard. So, what was happening at that time to where you felt like that and that you said, "Man, I gotta make a change or I gotta do something different."
Yeah, well, see, at the time, there were two groups. There was the Super Lovers and there were the Turnout Brothers. We were rival groups, and Herbie was with the Super Lovers. The Turnout Brothers had broken up, and I had moved in with the Super Lovers, and we had this record together called The Lovers Law. And but things weren't really moving as planned. And Herbie stumbles across Salt-N-Pepa. He worked in Sears, where I worked. I also worked there too, by the way. The whole story about Sears.
Right.
But I was actually one of the guys who actually worked there. But yeah. So he discovers Salt-N-Pepa, and that blows up. Kid and Play, they get together as a group, as the Fresh Force, and everybody's doing their thing. So I'm trying to figure it out. I love hip hop, but I don't see there's any way for me. Yeah, so I felt the kind of way. I kind of felt I felt left out, and I had to figure it out, but I felt lost because I didn't know what my next move was going to be. But what I did have was education. And I remember, I don't know where I saw this, but I remember seeing Kumo D going to college. It was Kumo D and DLB from the Phyllis Four. And I thought that was so cool. I was like, you mean you could be a rapper and go to college? I was just like, wow, this is cool. It's not maybe it's just, this is not corny. Like if these dudes and Mo D is the nicest MC and he's enrolled in I didn't know you could do that. Right. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. That if he can do it, I can do it too. Um so I remember my sister filling out my application to go to Howard University because she was going, and I got the acceptance letter 2 weeks before orientation. I had no clue because I had totally forgot about the application being filled out. So when the acceptance letter came, they said you had 2 weeks. And I was like, oh shoot, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I got accepted to Howard. So then I'm thinking, I'm like, you know what? It might not be a bad idea. I'm sitting here trying to figure this hip hop thing out, but I don't know if it's gonna happen. And my life to me was stagnant. So I was just like, you know what? Um, I'm gonna try it out. But that taught me a lesson because I knew nothing about Howard University. I knew nothing about Washington, D.C. I knew nothing about none of that stuff. But for some reason, I just took the leap of faith and I just went. I just like, at the last minute, I just did it.
Hmm.
And I can't even tell you why. I just knew that I needed to change. It's like it's like a kid that's like in the streets and he's trying to figure it out. And he's like, shit, I'm going to join the army because he ain't got nothing going for himself. That's kind of like how I felt. But I got accepted to Howard. I said, I'm gonna give it a shot. I think I'd be a fool if I turn it down. So I went, and I think that was the best thing I ever did in my life. One of the best things I ever did because it took me to the path. It took me on a different path in my life. That had I not chosen that path, I don't know if the dominoes would have fell in that direction. But it taught me a lesson that you should never be afraid to take chances. And ever since then, I've always taken those kind of chances of the unknown, like opening that next door, just making that move and not being afraid.
Hmm. Well, by taking that chance, one of the things I thought was great in your book as well is you talked about how discovering a Malcolm X on Afro-American history kind of opened your eyes and redirected your life in a very different way than it had been prior to that. So, do you think it was being quote unquote isolated away from home and then seeing like different type, I don't know, were these different types of books, different types of thoughts that you hadn't been around? Like what was it?
Yeah, well, you remember the whole movement. There was a whole Afrocentric movement in hip hop.
Yeah.
So everybody was into that. Everybody wanted to be conscious. Everybody was into Public Enemy, X Clan. So that was the thing to do. And here I am on Howard's campus. So it's like a big Afrocentric movement. And there's this bookstore called Pyramid Books, and I pick up a book, um, the autobiography of Malcolm X. But what really kind of blew me away about that book is as I'm reading, I'm seeing his address of where he actually lived. And it said 2311 96th Street, East Elmhurst, Long Island. Back then, East Elmhurst was called Long Island, which is Queens. But I saw that and I was just like, wait a minute. This guy lived on my block. Like I couldn't, it blew me away. I couldn't believe it. Malcolm X literally lived 15 houses away from my house.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That messed me up. And it just took me down that rabbit hole. And I started buying more. I bought the book, Malcolm X on Afro-American history. And that got me interested in ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet. And then I got into the Browder Files and I learned about Amun Ra and it just kept going.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was my history.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was I think I was 12, but I was doing a basketball camp in DC and our at and Morgan Wooten was the coach at the Matha. And basically all our summer counselors were the students. So, I was like 12, so whatever, sixth, seventh grade. And my coach was reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, and my dad had told me that it was the best autobiography ever written, but he said you should wait a year or two so you can better understand what he's talking about before you read it. So I just went up to my coach. I was like, "Oh, my dad said that's the best autobiography." And he looked at me, he's like, "Is your dad white?" He was like, he was shocked. But I was like, "Yeah, why?" But I hadn't read it yet, so I didn't know all of that. But that being said, when you went home though, this was another one of those very revealing moments when you were working at the video store and you said that Coogee Rap and his friend came in and they kind of were like, "Oh, you're working here now? I thought you were in the Turnout Brothers. What happened?" So
Yeah.
when that type of thing happens, it happens to all of us. But for you, how did you not say, "Man, let me stick to the school thing"? You seemed to every time it seemed like you were doubted or dismissed, it seemed like you doubled down. It was like, "Nah, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
harder."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was an embarrassing. It was a humiliating moment. I remember that because I am working on the video store, at the video store, but I'm also in college. But as far as the entertainment industry is concerned, I'm not where I want to be, right? So yeah, they see me because I was like a I was like a neighborhood hero growing up as a kid.
Right.
I was very popular. Everybody knew me. Even like G-Rap and those guys, they before they got on, I was one of the known MCs in the neighborhood. So yeah, but watching him blow up and then him seeing me um working at Just Tapes video store. But it wasn't G-Rap, it was this man that was kind of you know, said some kind of crazy stuff. And yeah, it made me feel away, but it made me push harder, right? Um, those things happen. People say things, but you just kind of just you got to just use that as fuel to just keep going.
Which you did.